To carry out its special military operation, Russia has sacrificed so many soldiers. Is this worth it? They have lost and maimed many of their soldiers, and now they have lost a high-ranking general. Does the death of a high-ranking general indicate that Russia is lacking talented commanders, or is it simply evidence of a change in tactics by Ukraine and its allies? A precision Storm Shadow missile strike has killed a high-ranking Russian general and hundreds of North Korean troops in one of the most devastating attacks on Russian military leadership since the conflict began. Lieutenant General Oleg Solodchuk became the latest senior Russian general killed in combat when the missile hit a command center in occupied territory on November 20th. Military analysts confirm this marks the first successful deployment of British-supplied Storm Shadow missiles against top-tier Russian command structures. The strike eliminated not only senior Russian leadership, but also dealt a significant blow to North Korean military presence in the region, with preliminary reports indicating hundreds of casualties. Defense experts suggest this attack demonstrates a critical vulnerability in Russian command operations and highlights the growing complexity of international involvement in the conflict. The loss of such high-ranking leadership threatens to severely disrupt Russian military coordination and strategic planning capabilities in the region. Breaking news details. On November 20th, Ukrainian forces carried out a coordinated missile strike on a Russian Presidential Affairs Directorate sanatorium in Mariino, Kursk Oblast. The attack, which occurred around 2:50 p.m. local time, targeted an underground facility believed to be a command center. Reports suggest up to 12 Storm Shadow cruise missiles were launched into the region. The strike caused considerable casualties and damage. Lieutenant General Valery Solodchuk, first deputy commander of the Leningrad Military District, was killed, along with 18 Russian military officers. Additionally, 33 Russian soldiers were injured. Among the reported casualties were approximately 500 North Korean soldiers. While 3 North Korean military representatives, 2 of them, male officers, were wounded. In the aftermath, 13 Russian sappers, including the deputy chief of staff of the 88th Mechanized Brigade, were injured during cleanup operations while attempting to neutralize unexploded ordnance. The strike prompted immediate diplomatic responses. The United States temporarily closed its embassy in Kiev, citing concerns over potential significant air attacks. Several other diplomatic missions followed suit, with Italian, Spanish, and Greek embassies also suspending operations. The French embassy remained open but urged its citizens to exercise increased caution. Moscow responded firmly to the escalation, with Russian Foreign Intelligence Chief Sergei Naryshkin announcing that Russia would retaliate against NATO countries facilitating long-range Ukrainian missile strikes against Russian territory. The Kremlin initially declined to comment on the specific attack, while Russian war correspondents posted video evidence of the strikes on social media platforms, showing black smoke rising from the target area. Storm Shadow missile capabilities. The Storm Shadow cruise missile has proven to be a devastatingly effective weapon in recent operations, showcasing its advanced design and cutting-edge technical capabilities. As an Anglo-French precision strike system, it stands among the most sophisticated and reliable missile platforms currently in use in the ongoing conflict. Its combat-proven performance highlights its critical role in modern warfare, particularly against high-value and well-defended targets. Weighing 1,300 kilograms and measuring 5.1 meters in length, the Storm Shadow combines exceptional firepower with pinpoint accuracy. It is equipped with a wingspan of 3 meters and a body diameter of 0.48 meters, enabling it to maintain aerodynamic stability throughout its flight path. With an operational speed exceeding 600 mph and a combat range surpassing 250 kilometers, the missile can strike targets deep within enemy territory while minimizing risks to the launching aircraft. At the heart of its propulsion system lies the Turbomeca Microturbo T6030 turbojet engine, which allows the missile to sustain low-altitude flight. This terrain-hugging capability significantly reduces the chances of detection and interception by hostile air defense systems. Furthermore, its conventional warhead features a blast penetrator configuration, making it highly effective against hardened targets such as bunkers, command centers, and fortified facilities. Since its introduction into service with the Royal Air Force and French Air Force in 2003, the Storm Shadow has demonstrated its effectiveness in multiple theaters of war. During the Iraq conflict in 2003, the missile played a key role in precision strikes, with 27 launched in operations conducted between March and April of that year. Its success continued during the NATO intervention in Libya in 2011, where French forces deployed 15 Storm Shadows, while UK forces launched 60 to neutralize heavily fortified targets. The system has also proven invaluable in Syria, where it achieved successful strikes against hardened enemy positions, further solidifying its reputation as a highly reliable weapon for complex and demanding missions. The Storm Shadow's impressive history and superior technical features make it a game-changing asset in modern conflict scenarios, allowing operators to execute precision strikes with unparalleled accuracy and strategic impact. The missile's sophisticated navigation system combines three critical technologies: inertial navigation, GPS, and terrain reference navigation. This triple redundant approach ensures exceptional accuracy even in challenging environmental conditions or electronic warfare environments. The Broach warhead system provides a unique two-stage attack capability. The initial charge creates an entry point, allowing the main warhead to penetrate deep into hardened structures before detonation. This capability proved crucial in the recent strike against the Russian command center. The missile's fire-and-forget technology and autonomous guidance system allow it to operate effectively in heavily defended airspace. Its low observable design and terrain-hugging flight profile make it particularly difficult for air defense systems to detect and intercept, contributing to its high success rate in penetrating sophisticated air defense networks. Russian command structure impact. The death of Lieutenant General Valery Solodchuk marks the most significant blow to Russian military leadership since the beginning of 2024, sending shockwaves through their command structure and exacerbating existing challenges. Russian forces, already grappling with mounting casualties among high-ranking officers, now face a deepening crisis in maintaining operational cohesion and strategic direction on the battlefield. Lieutenant General Solodchuk was a figure of immense importance within Russia's military hierarchy, having built a distinguished career through decades of service in key command roles. He began his rise as commander of the 7th Air Assault Division, a position that showcased his leadership in critical operations. Later, he ascended to become deputy commander of the 5th Army, cementing his reputation as a capable and trusted leader. Solodchuk's combat experience extended across some of Russia's most grueling and formative military campaigns. He played pivotal roles in both Chechen wars, where he honed his tactical acumen in urban and guerrilla warfare, as well as in counter-terrorism operations in Dagestan, which underscored his ability to adapt to complex and volatile battle conditions. His battlefield experience, coupled with his capacity for command under pressure, made him one of Russia's most seasoned and dependable military figures. The consequences of Solodchuk's death extend beyond the personal loss of an accomplished officer. It strikes a significant blow to Russia's military command structure at a time when stability is critical. The loss of senior leadership has already begun to disrupt Russian operational capabilities, exposing a systemic vulnerability within their rigid military hierarchy. Unlike decentralized command systems used by some Western militaries, Russia's organizational model concentrates decision-making power heavily at the upper echelons. This reliance on high-ranking officers to issue orders and maintain coordination makes the death of senior commanders particularly devastating, as it often leaves lower-ranking units without clear guidance during critical moments in combat. The scale of Russia's leadership losses further highlights the severity of the situation. Recent estimates indicate that at least 10 general officers have been killed since the escalation of hostilities, while more than 15 senior commanders have also lost their lives. In total, Russia's military has sustained staggering personnel losses, with over 696,000 troops reportedly killed or incapacitated. The sheer magnitude of these casualties underscores the increasingly unsustainable nature of Russia's military operations, which are being further compounded by the depletion of experienced officers. The vacuum left by Solodchuk's death represents not just a symbolic loss but a functional collapse in leadership continuity, further straining an already weakened chain of command. Without seasoned leaders to guide forces and maintain operational efficiency, Russian troops are increasingly vulnerable to disorganization and tactical errors, threatening the overall cohesion of military operations. In such a hierarchical system, the absence of experienced decision-makers reverberates across multiple levels, impacting everything from battlefield strategy to troop morale. As the loss of Lieutenant General Solodchuk continues to ripple through the Russian military, the challenges facing their forces have become more apparent than ever. The struggle to replace experienced leadership, coupled with staggering casualty rates, raises serious questions about Russia's ability to sustain its current operational tempo and maintain effective command in an increasingly volatile and unforgiving conflict. The loss of senior leadership within the Russian military has had far-reaching consequences, severely impacting several fundamental aspects of operational effectiveness. One of the most glaring challenges is the increasing difficulty in maintaining command and control over forces in the field. With senior commanders lost or incapacitated, the coordination of complex military operations has become strained, particularly as remaining officers struggle to fill the void. Unsecured communication channels have only compounded these issues, forcing Russian forces to rely on vulnerable systems that are frequently intercepted or disrupted by opposing forces. This breakdown in secure communications not only hinders the transmission of orders but also exposes critical operational details, leaving Russian units at a significant disadvantage. The loss of experienced leadership has also led to the forced deployment of generals and other high-ranking officers directly to the front lines. Traditionally, senior commanders operate from a distance, overseeing strategy and maintaining a broader situational awareness. However, with gaps in the chain of command and growing concerns over discipline and morale, Russian generals have increasingly been compelled to take personal control of frontline units. This shift is a clear indication of the disorder within the ranks and highlights the difficulty mid-level officers face in maintaining cohesion. High-ranking commanders have been tasked with addressing issues such as troop insubordination, low morale, and disobedience, all while under direct threat from enemy fire. This practice not only risks the lives of senior leaders who are essential for overarching strategic decision-making but also further disrupts Russia's operational structure, as every loss of a senior officer creates yet another leadership vacuum. Another critical consequence of these leadership losses has been the degradation of tactical decision-making capabilities. The absence of seasoned commanders on the ground has placed decision-making responsibilities on less experienced personnel, who may lack the expertise or confidence to effectively respond to fast-changing battlefield conditions. This shift has led to delays in decision-making, poorly coordinated maneuvers, and missed opportunities to exploit tactical advantages. Units without experienced leadership often struggle to adapt to adversarial strategies, resulting in disjointed operations and increased vulnerability to counterattacks. Moreover, the rigid and centralized nature of the Russian military hierarchy amplifies this problem, as lower-ranking officers are often reluctant or entirely unprepared to take initiative without direct orders from above. The Russian military structure currently maintains approximately 470,000 troops in occupied territories, but faces significant challenges in coordinating these forces effectively. Their ability to maintain consistent operational tempo has been compromised, with units requiring rotation after sustaining 30% casualties. The loss of experienced commanders has particularly affected their ability to coordinate complex operations, with many junior officers receiving abbreviated training as short as 2 months. Recent assessments indicate that Russian forces have reverted to traditional Soviet-era organizational structures above the battalion level while adopting more dispersed tactical formations below the regimental level. This reorganization reflects both battlefield adaptations and the chronic shortage of experienced officers capable of coordinating larger formations. The elimination of General Solodchuk, combined with existing leadership challenges, has forced significant operational adjustments. Russian forces now struggle with basic command functions, often requiring senior officers to move dangerously close to frontline positions to maintain control. This vulnerability has been exploited by Ukrainian forces, who continue to target command and control nodes with precision strikes. North Korean military presence. Recent intelligence reports have uncovered an unprecedented level of North Korean military involvement in Russia's ongoing war effort, signaling a remarkable and concerning shift in international military cooperation. According to Pentagon assessments, approximately 10,000 North Korean troops are currently operating in Russia's Kursk Oblast, with deployment numbers projected to increase to 12,000 by the end of the year. This development marks one of the largest foreign troop deployments in support of Russia's military operations since the conflict began, underscoring a deepening alignment between Moscow and Pyongyang. The scale of this deployment includes some of North Korea's most formidable military units, most notably elite special forces drawn from the highly trained Storm Corps. This specialized formation, known for its expertise in infiltration, close-quarters combat, and targeted assassination missions, is part of North Korea's XI Corps, an entity long regarded as one of Pyongyang's most disciplined and lethal divisions. South Korean intelligence sources confirm that the deployment process began as early as October, with North Korean troops arriving in a series of coordinated waves. The first wave consisted of 1,500 soldiers who were stationed in Russia's Far East, marking the initial stage of their integration into Russian operations. A second, significantly larger wave followed, with 8,000 troops transported to key positions in Kursk Oblast. Intelligence further indicates that these waves have brought the total number of deployed North Korean forces to 10,000, with additional reinforcements expected over the coming months. North Korean troops have been assigned specific combat roles and responsibilities within the broader framework of Russia's war strategy. Their primary focus has been on direct infantry operations, where they are tasked with frontline engagements. These duties include trench-clearing missions, basic infantry combat, and the execution of close-quarters maneuvers in contested areas. Furthermore, North Korean units have been integrated into artillery operations, assisting Russian forces in delivering sustained firepower, while also engaging in drone warfare, an increasingly pivotal component of modern military tactics. Elite North Korean special forces, including members of the Storm Corps, are believed to be operating in specialized missions, such as infiltration, sabotage, and reconnaissance behind enemy lines, further enhancing their strategic value to Russia's military campaign. To facilitate their integration into Russian operations, North Korean troops have been outfitted with Russian uniforms and standard-issue equipment. However, the process has not been without significant challenges. One of the most prominent obstacles has been the issue of command and coordination. Language barriers between Russian officers and North Korean troops have proven to be a major hurdle, complicating the seamless execution of joint missions and reducing overall operational efficiency. Despite these difficulties, Russia continues to rely heavily on these North Korean forces to bolster its manpower, particularly in areas where attritional warfare has drained its rank. The growing presence of North Korean troops on the battlefield not only reflects Russia's increasing dependence on foreign military support but also raises broader concerns about the geopolitical ramifications of this alliance. This level of North Korean military involvement represents a bold step for Pyongyang, providing their forces with valuable combat experience while strengthening ties with Moscow. It also signals a shift in the global dynamics of the conflict, with implications that extend beyond the immediate battlefield. As North Korean deployments continue to expand, their participation is likely to have a lasting impact on both the tactical and strategic dimensions of Russia's war effort. The integration of North Korean forces has produced mixed operational results. Recent combat engagements have revealed significant vulnerabilities, with Ukrainian forces reporting that North Korean units suffered approximately 30 casualties in weekend fighting near several villages in Kursk. The effectiveness of these forces has been hampered by communication difficulties between Russian and North Korean units. Despite their elite status, North Korean troops have demonstrated tactical vulnerabilities, particularly in their response to modern drone warfare. Ukrainian drone operators report that North Korean soldiers often move in large groups across open terrain, making them vulnerable to precision strikes. Recent casualty reports indicate significant losses among North Korean forces, with the White House confirming several dozens of casualties in recent operations. These losses have prompted the deployment of fresh personnel from the 94th Separate Brigade of the North Korean Army to maintain combat effectiveness. The presence of North Korean troops represents both an opportunity and a challenge for Russian forces. While providing needed manpower, their deployment has introduced new complexities in battlefield coordination and tactical integration. The Pentagon assesses that Russia's reliance on North Korean troops underscores its struggle to maintain adequate force levels, particularly in the Kursk region. Putin's retaliatory response. In response to the devastating Storm Shadow missile strike, Russian President Vladimir Putin authorized the launch of Russia's new Oreshnik missile against Ukraine, signaling a significant escalation in military capabilities and nuclear posturing. On November 21, the Kremlin deployed the experimental Oreshnik intermediate-range ballistic missile against the Ukrainian city of Dnipro. Named after the hazelnut tree, the missile boasts advanced capabilities, including speeds reaching Mach 10, 2.5-3 km, a range of 500 to 5,500 kilometers, and warheads capable of carrying multiple conventional or nuclear payloads. It is also designed to penetrate targets as deep as 3 to 4 floors underground. The missile launch coincides with a revision to Russia's nuclear doctrine, further lowering the threshold for nuclear weapons use. Under the updated policy, nuclear responses are now permissible in the event of conventional attacks on Russian territory by nations supported by nuclear powers, strikes threatening Russian sovereignty or territorial integrity, or any attacks from NATO members, which are regarded as collective action. While Putin has refrained from overt nuclear rhetoric in recent statements, military analysts suggest the Oreshnik's deployment serves as a deliberate warning to Western powers. The Pentagon, however, asserts that Russia possesses only a limited number of these experimental weapons. The Russian leadership has demonstrated a clear pattern of escalatory responses, with Putin declaring Russia's right to target military facilities in countries that supply long-range weapons to Ukraine. This stance reflects Moscow's broader strategy of controlled escalation, evidenced by that the Kremlin's immediate retaliation came after Ukraine employed Storm Shadow missiles in the Kursk region. Russian officials have signaled preparations for additional Oreshnik launches in the coming days, the Western intelligence assessments suggest these weapons are unlikely to alter the strategic balance of the conflict. Strategic implications: Moscow's response pattern indicates a careful calibration of escalation, avoiding confrontation with NATO while maintaining credible deterrence. Putin's warning about potential strikes on Western military facilities represents a significant shift in Russian military doctrine, though analysts note that the Kremlin remains cautious about triggering direct conflict with NATO forces. The deployment of the Oreshnik missile, combined with the revised nuclear doctrine, suggests Russia is pursuing a dual-track strategy of conventional force modernization while lowering the nuclear threshold. This approach aims to deter further Western military support for Ukraine while maintaining strategic ambiguity about potential responses to future attacks on Russian territory. International law implications. The legal landscape surrounding NATO weapons deployment in Ukraine has undergone significant changes since the onset of the conflict, prompting a deeper examination of international law and the implications of military assistance. This issue has come into sharper focus following the recent Storm Shadow missile strike that resulted in the death of Lieutenant General Solodchuk. The event has reignited debates about the legality of Ukraine's use of Western-supplied weapons against targets on Russian territory, a matter that challenges conventional understandings of sovereignty and defense. The framework governing Ukraine's ability to utilize Western long-range weapons has shifted considerably since the conflict began. German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius recently asserted that Ukraine's strikes on Russian territory using Western-supplied weapons are lawful under international law, a stance that marks a notable departure from traditional principles of military neutrality and arms assistance. Historically, the rules surrounding military aid were far more restrictive, with strict limitations on neutrality and the geographical scope of defensive action. At the core of this evolving framework are several key legal considerations. International law recognizes the sovereign right of nations to defend themselves against aggression, including measures to protect territorial integrity and national security. This includes the right to strike military targets within an aggressor's territory if they pose a direct threat to the defending nation. Ukraine's actions must also comply with international humanitarian law, which governs the conduct of armed conflict to minimize civilian harm. The modern legal understanding of military assistance and neutrality has its roots in pivotal developments following the 1928 Kellogg-Briand Pact, which fundamentally altered global perceptions of war and neutrality. Under traditional interpretations, strict impartiality was required of neutral nations, prohibiting military aid to any belligerent party. Strikes were also generally limited to a nation's territory. However, the current framework allows for discriminatory support, permitting military assistance to the defending nation while expanding the scope of permissible strikes to include aggressor territory. This shift in legal norms has been reinforced by advisory opinions from the International Court of Justice, ICJ, and provisions within the UN Charter, both of which underscore Ukraine's right to self-defense in response to armed aggression. The UN Charter's Article 51 explicitly provides nations with the right to defend themselves against attacks, and this principle extends to the use of weapons provided by allied nations, including NATO members. The Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, OSCE, has further emphasized that both Ukraine and Russia remain bound by international humanitarian law. However, Ukraine has implemented specific derogations under martial law, allowing it greater flexibility in its defensive operations. In practice, this evolving legal framework reflects the complexities of modern warfare, where the lines between defense sovereignty and external military support are increasingly blurred. Ukraine's ability to strike military targets within Russia using Western-supplied weapons not only aligns with international legal norms, but also underscores a broader reinterpretation of neutrality and military aid in conflicts involving clear acts of aggression. As the war continues, this legal precedent may have far-reaching implications for future conflicts and the role of international military alliances. The Storm Shadow strike has established several significant legal precedents. Britain's authorization for Ukraine to use Storm Shadow missiles beyond its borders, coupled with U.S. approval for ATACMS strikes, creates new parameters for military assistance in international conflicts. Moscow's legal position claims that Western weapons support constitutes direct involvement in the conflict. However, NATO maintains that providing defensive capabilities to Ukraine remains within international legal boundaries. The alliance emphasizes that Russia's invasion represents a blatant violation of international law. Military analysts note that this legal framework could influence future conflicts. The Pentagon's position allows Ukraine to use American-provided weapons in cross-border strikes to counter Russian attacks, though restrictions remain on deep strike capabilities. This balanced approach aims to support legitimate self-defense while preventing uncontrolled escalation. The international community's response to these developments has been measured. While some nations have suspended diplomatic operations in Kiev, others maintain that supporting Ukraine's defensive capabilities does not violate international law. This evolving legal interpretation could shape military assistance protocols in future conflicts, particularly regarding the use of advanced weapons systems against aggressor nations. Strategic military analysis. The successful Storm Shadow missile strike on Russian command structures has exposed critical weaknesses within Moscow's military organization, while simultaneously underscoring the effectiveness of precision strikes against leadership targets. The outcomes of this attack offer significant insights into both immediate tactical advantages and broader long-term strategic implications. From a tactical perspective, the strike highlights the immense value of precision weaponry in disrupting enemy operations. The Institute for the Study of War has identified approximately 225 Russian military bases that fall within the operational range of the Storm Shadow missile, presenting a wide array of high-value targets for future strikes. This capability compels Russian forces to rethink the placement of their command posts and adjust their operational patterns, which has the potential to severely impair their ability to coordinate effectively on the battlefield. The necessity of such adaptations places added pressure on the Russian military's operational framework. The attack has introduced several key tactical challenges for Russian forces. First, it has degraded the effectiveness of Russian air defenses within the occupied territories, exposing vulnerabilities in their ability to protect critical infrastructure and leadership installations. Furthermore, the strike has increased the operational costs associated with Russian air support missions, as additional resources are now required to mitigate the threat posed by precision strikes. Lastly, the success of the Storm Shadow missile has forced Russian command centers to relocate beyond the weapon's range, thereby diminishing their ability to remain close to frontline operations and directly oversee battlefield activity. Notably, the strike's effectiveness against hardened facilities demonstrates the missile's capacity to penetrate and destroy fortified command installations. Military analysts have acknowledged that while Russian air defenses have evolved to counter the growing threat posed by Storm Shadow strikes within Ukraine, the sheer expansion of territory now vulnerable to such attacks has further complicated Moscow's ability to defend its forces effectively. The strike also reveals deeper vulnerabilities within Russia's command structures. Russian military culture exhibits systemic weaknesses that exacerbate the consequences of leadership losses. The Russian military's decision-making process is marked by excessive centralization, which has created substantial operational shortcomings. The concentration of authority at the highest levels of command has left frontline units dependent on senior officers for decision-making, resulting in delays in responding to dynamic battlefield conditions. This rigidity makes the loss of senior commanders particularly devastating, as the chain of command becomes paralyzed without key leadership figures. Additionally, the hierarchical nature of Russia's military organization has contributed to widespread problems in information flow and situational awareness. Officers frequently engage in the practice of false reporting, submitting exaggerated or inaccurate accounts of unit strength and capabilities to their superiors. This culture of deception has severely hindered the ability of Russian leadership to assess battlefield realities accurately and formulate effective strategic plans. Compounding these challenges is a flawed leadership development system, where promotions are often based on garrison performance rather than battlefield competence. This practice has resulted in a leadership corps ill-prepared to address the complexities of modern warfare. Military analysts have further noted that personnel shortages are a persistent issue across Russian units. Yet the tendency to obscure or underreport these shortfalls has created a dangerous gap between the actual conditions on the ground and the perceptions held by senior commanders. The combination of these factors, centralized command, inaccurate reporting, and poorly developed leadership, has left the Russian military particularly vulnerable to attacks that target its command structures. In conclusion, the success of the Storm Shadow missile strike highlights both the precision capabilities of Western-supplied weaponry and the systemic weaknesses entrenched within the Russian military. By targeting leadership nodes and command installations, such strikes have the potential to disrupt not only immediate operations, but also the broader organizational integrity of Russian forces. The compounded effect of degraded defenses, forced adaptations, and leadership vulnerabilities poses a significant challenge to Moscow's ability to maintain operational cohesion and strategic momentum on the battlefield. The elimination of Lieutenant General Solodchuk and other senior officers has introduced long-term operational difficulties for Russian forces, significantly affecting their overall military performance. According to Justin Crump, CEO of Sibylline Consultancy, although Russian air defenses have adjusted to address the threat posed by Storm Shadow missiles within Ukraine, safeguarding the vastly expanded territory now exposed to such attacks represents a far greater challenge for Moscow. The long-term strategic effects of these leadership losses are already evident. Frontline operations have become increasingly time-consuming and resource-intensive, placing additional strain on Russian forces. Military logistics and command coordination have been further compromised, as the absence of experienced leadership disrupts the flow of critical decision-making and operational planning. Additionally, the reduced ability to ensure effective air support has weakened Russia's capacity to respond quickly and efficiently to evolving battlefield conditions. The Russian military faces significant challenges in maintaining operational tempo, with units requiring rotation after sustaining 30% casualties. The shortage of experienced officers has forced the implementation of abbreviated training programs, some as short as 2 months, further degrading command capabilities. Matthew Saville, director of military science at the RUSI think tank, suggests that the missile strikes create a strategic dilemma for Russia regarding air defense positioning. This challenge is compounded by the Russian military's cultural resistance to bottom-up refinement and innovation, limiting its ability to adapt to evolving threats. The presence of North Korean forces adds another layer of complexity to command and control challenges. With approximately 12,000 North Korean troops deployed, Russian commanders must coordinate operations across language barriers and different military cultures, further straining an already stressed command structure. Global security implications. The elimination of Lieutenant General Solodchuk, along with hundreds of North Korean troops, has triggered profound shifts in global security dynamics, fundamentally reshaping military alliances and regional power structures across multiple continents. This unprecedented attack has accelerated the reconfiguration of international security architecture, with particularly notable impacts in Eastern Europe and the Asia-Pacific region. The successful deployment of Storm Shadow missiles against Russian targets has dramatically altered the strategic balance between NATO and Russia. Western officials estimate that Russian forces have suffered as many as 15,000 casualties in recent weeks, underscoring the devastating effectiveness of NATO-supplied precision weaponry. The Institute for the Study of War reports that approximately 225 Russian military bases now fall within the operational range of Storm Shadow missiles, creating a significant and growing vulnerability for Moscow's military infrastructure. In response, Russian authorities have begun preparing for prolonged military operations, intensifying domestic propaganda efforts to sustain public support and implementing new defensive postures along the western border. The Kremlin's reaction also includes a notable revision of its nuclear doctrine, with policy changes now permitting nuclear responses to conventional attacks conducted with NATO-supplied weapons. This shift has forced Western intelligence agencies to reassess their strategic outlook and the risks of potential escalation. Parallel to this development, the military alliance between Russia and North Korea has reached unprecedented levels of cooperation, signaling a broader realignment in regional power dynamics. Approximately 12,000 North Korean troops have been deployed to Russian territory, marking an extraordinary expansion of Pyongyang's involvement in the conflict. Beyond troop deployments, this partnership now encompasses a comprehensive strategic agreement that includes mutual defense commitments, technology transfers, and enhanced diplomatic coordination. North Korea has begun gaining access to advanced Russian military technology, including missile systems and submarine capabilities, while also securing political backing from Moscow on international platforms such as the United Nations Security Council. This deepening alliance represents a significant geopolitical shift, as North Korea's growing collaboration with Russia may reduce its historical dependence on China. Such realignment carries far-reaching implications for regional stability in the Asia-Pacific, where Pyongyang's bolstered military and diplomatic position could heighten tensions and recalibrate strategic calculations among neighboring powers. The convergence of Russian and North Korean interests not only amplifies immediate security concerns but also raises broader questions about the emerging global order amid escalating rivalries. The evolving security landscape has generated cascading effects across multiple regions, with the Black Sea emerging as a critical geostrategic focal point. Ukraine's successful attacks have significantly weakened Russia's Black Sea fleet, reducing its operational capacity by approximately 40%. This substantial naval degradation has reshaped the regional balance of power, creating opportunities for neighboring states to assert greater influence. Turkey has seen its strategic influence in the region rise considerably, leveraging its position as a dominant maritime player to advance its geopolitical interests. At the same time, Romania and Bulgaria have solidified greater control over their exclusive economic zones, enhancing their role in regional security and resource management. NATO's southeastern flank has also been bolstered, with the alliance now able to project greater strength and cohesion across the Black Sea and surrounding areas. The combination of these shifts has underscored the region's growing importance as a theater of both military and economic competition. The partnership between Russia and North Korea has introduced new complexities to regional security calculations. South Korean intelligence services report that North Korean forces have suffered significant casualties in recent operations, demonstrating both the scale of their commitment and the risks of their military deployment. The presence of North Korean troops in Russia's western regions has fundamentally altered the security dynamics of Eastern Europe. Western intelligence agencies note that this deployment represents the largest overseas commitment of North Korean forces in recent history, creating unprecedented challenges for regional stability and international security frameworks. Military analysts observe that Russia's reliance on North Korean troops indicates significant weaknesses in its force generation capabilities. This dependency, combined with the successful Storm Shadow strike against senior leadership, suggests a broader deterioration in Russia's military effectiveness and strategic position. The international community faces mounting challenges as these developments threaten to reshape established security architectures. The combination of advanced Western weapons deployment, evolving nuclear doctrines, and unprecedented military partnerships has created a volatile security environment that extends far beyond the immediate conflict zone. The devastating Storm Shadow missile strike marks a pivotal moment in modern warfare, demonstrating the lethal effectiveness of precision weapons against hardened command structures. Lieutenant General Solodchuk's death, along with hundreds of North Korean casualties, has created unprecedented challenges for Russia's military leadership while exposing critical vulnerabilities in their command operations. Russian forces now face a complex strategic dilemma. Their reliance on North Korean troops, combined with significant leadership losses, has weakened operational capabilities across multiple fronts. Putin's deployment of the Oreshnik missile system signals Moscow's willingness to escalate the conflict, though military analysts suggest this response stems from a position of growing weakness rather than strength. These developments have reshaped the global security landscape. NATO's provision of advanced weapons systems, validated by the Storm Shadow strike success, has altered traditional military assistance frameworks. Meanwhile, the deepening Russia-North Korea alliance threatens stability across Eastern Europe and the Asia-Pacific region, forcing a reassessment of international security arrangements. Military experts predict continued degradation of Russian command effectiveness as Western-supplied precision weapons target leadership structures with increasing accuracy. This tactical advantage, coupled with Moscow's growing dependence on foreign troops, suggests a significant shift in military power dynamics that will likely influence global security relationships for years to come. If Russia continues to pursue special operations in Ukraine, do you think Russia will lose more good generals? How do you assess Russia's strategies? Let's discuss other issues about the Russia-Ukraine conflict in the comments. Thanks for watching. See you again.